Welcome back to Pro Sex Studios. I'm Brian Downs, and today we're going to be talking about the Netflix transhumanist series Altered Carbon, Season 2. What is the attitude about sexuality being presented to you by these filmmakers, by this creative project? So the basic concept of Altered Carbon is a distant future wherein re-sleeving technology has been perfected. A person's personality, memories, identity can be stored on a cortical stack. It's basically a hard drive it installs in the back of the neck. That's where your identity is, and the stack can be moved from one sleeve or body to another. Sleeves can be cloned and grown, apparently. And in this way, a person can change their body. They can be male or they can be female. They can be tall, they can be short, they can be black, they can be white, they can be whatever they can afford, really. And in this way, a person can also live forever, because as long as that stack survives, you survive. What happens to the body is relatively unimportant. The main character, Takashi Kovacs, is the last envoy, a soldier and apparently diplomat sort of character, although he's not diplomatic at all. Many, many years ago, he was a member of a revolutionary movement, and it was led by a woman named Kelchrist Falconer. She was the inventor of the cortical stack, but she eventually came to see that she had made a terrible mistake, and she wants all of humanity to give up this technology of immortality and go back to the old-fashioned way. In Season 2, Kovacs gets kidnapped by a Methuselah. Methuselah is a billionaire, essentially, who is immortal because they have huge resources and almost unlimited access to this technology of re-sleeving. This Methuselah wants Kovacs to come to the planet of Harlan's world and be his bodyguard because someone is killing Methuselahs there. Let me point out that the opening sequence of Altered Carbon is a sinister snake wrapping itself around a beautiful woman's body, and then that snake turns into the dragon Ouroboros that is the symbol of the immortality technology. So this obviously points at the prominent presence of that technology in the setting, and it suggests the book of Genesis. The serpent tempted the woman, and the woman then goes on to screw up the man's day. Sex is danger. That's one of the negative memes. Dangerous sex, number 2. That's the opening sequence, by the way. Dangerous sex. Beautiful, nude, female body, sinister, serpent, terrible temptations. Same sequence as Season 1. Let me say this. Season 1 was anti-sex all the way. Every bit of sex in Season 1. Sex was either transactional, at best, fraught with angst in the middle, and just full-on psychotic at worst. Apparently, you give people beautiful immortal bodies, and what they want to do is sadistic sex murder. That's Altered Carbon's view of sexuality in Season 1. By the way, the use of this snake on the woman in a cyberpunk transhumanist kind of thing obviously recalls the famous cabaret scene from Blade Runner 1982, the original theatrical release, which was also a scene that was full of dangerous sex. Altered Carbon embodies a lot of my 12 anti-sex memes. If you're watching the channel, you know that I've discovered 12 anti-sex memes that are repeated endlessly in popular media in an attempt to get you to feel terrible about your genitals. I did a video listing the individual memes. One of them is sexy, sexy killers. Really good looking people tend to kill and destroy a lot. Heroes do it for the greater good, villains do it for their own selfish ends, but they're really good looking people. You know, John Wick doesn't have a lazy eye, right? Ethan Hunt doesn't have crooked teeth. 12 minutes into the first episode of this season, the episode's called Phantom Lady, we've seen a regular rogues gallery of really good-looking thieves and con artists and killers and secret agents. And then Horace Axley, the Methuselah, kidnaps Takashi Kovacs, kidnaps his consciousness and puts it in a virtual reality prison and tells him, hey, you can come work for me or you can go pound salt. And he says, we're going to give you a brand new sleeve on Harlan's World. And I can help you find Kelchrist Falconer, your long-lost love, who you have been pursuing across the known worlds, across the stars, for many decades. Oh, by the way, did we mention you can have a very nice body when you do it? A very nice sleeve. It looks just like the actor Anthony Mackie. It's a military model. In both seasons, Takashi Kovacs, in this season portrayed by Anthony Mackie, in the earlier season portrayed by a different actor, in a different sleeve. In both seasons, the body is awesome. Six-pack abs, tall, broad-looking Anthony Mackie, right? And who bulked up for this role, I think. Big biceps, strong jawline, the whole thing. Why is the military model really, really handsome? Well, probably when you're making these things, it doesn't cost more than an extra $5 to make it handsome while you're at it. So, hey, why not? But sexy, sexy killers. So the way you tend to travel in the Altered Carbon universe is you email your downloaded identity to that new planet, and that gets downloaded into a stack, and then the stack is implanted in a sleeve. It's much more cost effective than trying to ship bodies through space. So he gets emailed to Harlan's world, and while this is happening, he seems to be dreaming, and he dreams of Falconer, including a short shot of her having sex, or appearing to have sex. We assume with him, but we don't actually see Takashi Kovacs in that shot. We just see her face, but he's dreaming of that. And then he wakes up in a medical tank, almost drowning, crawls out gasping. Apparently the technicians who were supposed to be here to help him through the resleeving process are falling down on the job. But when I say falling down, I mean fell down with bullet wounds in their heads, because everybody's dead. It's a litter of corpses, including Axley's. The killer of Methuselah's has been here, and has some secret weapon, some method of permanently killing her victims. She can destroy the stack and any backups of the stack that might exist. So, what do we have? We have a moment where he dreams of his long-lost love, who he hasn't seen in literally hundreds of years by the actual count of the clock, making love with her, and then, pow, horror, terror. He himself is injured by the killer. He almost drowns. Just, it's a big mess. That's what we call the wanting disaster. Negative meme number 1. Thinking about sex, wanting sex, desiring sex, liking sex leads to a bad result. Takashi Kovacs is accompanied in all his travels by an artificial intelligence named Poe, who's called Poe because he looks just like the author Edgar Allan Poe. Why they do this, I don't know. What is the point of the Poe theme? It's not like this character, this AI, is like gloomy and really good at poetry and self-destruction. So he just happens to look like the 19th century author. Well, not happens to, was designed to. Played by Chris Connor, by the way. But Poe travels around with Kovacs, and in investigating these mysteries, Poe meets a group of AI programs who used to excavate for Elder artifacts on Harlan's world. The Elder, E-L-D-E-R. This isn't Warhammer 40,000. Are a vanished species of extraterrestrials who left behind all sorts of valuable artifacts and so on. All of these AIs present in this virtual environment like people, like rather attractive people, especially Dig 301, portrayed by Dina Shahabi. She's really, really cute. She's a really attractive person, and she befriends Poe. Why do these AIs look like this? Why is it necessary for AIs to look like attractive humans and act like attractive humans? Why aren't they just AIs? What's the point? Also, she quickly befriends Poe, and this is going to be developed as a romance. AIs have romances, but they're artificial intelligences. Why do they behave like human beings? They're not human beings. On Harlan's world is a character named Trep, a bounty hunter. She gets tied up in Takashi Kovacs' adventures and intrigues. We see her trying to have a sexual encounter with her life partner, Mika. They're both female. They're both wearing female sleeves. The idea of sex and gender is a bit complicated when you can switch your body out at will. But anyway, they're both wearing female sleeves. And I don't remember anyone ever using the word wife or girlfriend to describe these women or to describe their relationship to one another. right? Not wife, not girlfriend, not bang buddy, not nothing, right? And this happens a lot. People who are in what appear to be sexual relationships keep those relationships sublimated. They're almost all entirely off camera, and you don't even hear the words like wife, like girlfriend, like sex partner. Doesn't happen. And by the way, the sex doesn't happen. They're trying to have a sexual encounter, but they're interrupted by Poe, who is desperately seeking help because Kovacs needs rescued and blah, blah, blah. And one interruption is followed by another, and Mika doesn't really approve of Trep's involvement in these intrigues, and so she storms off in a huff, and the sexual encounter doesn't happen. Now, why is this scene constructed this way? Right? Mika and Trep could have been walking the dog, or jogging, or cooking dinner when Poe showed up, and we could have established that they are, life partners. No, they're trying to have a sexual encounter, which Poe interrupts. And then we will never see them have a sexual encounter again. So this is many, many layers of sex negativity. Number one, it's serious people don't sex. People who have responsibilities don't have sex lives. Heroes don't have sex lives. Trep gives up on this sexual encounter she was trying to have in order to go and get involved in the action of the plot. Trep and Mika never have sex. They seem to try it once, but then don't. We don't see it again. We don't hear about it again. We don't even hear the word girlfriend to describe their relationship, or wife, or any other similar word. It's also dangerous sex because Trep and Mika were trying to have a sexual encounter, and suddenly Poe shows up and says, oh, Kovac has been kidnapped, he's being held hostage by whoever. And that's dangerous sex. And it's also the wanting disaster. Trep was wanting to have a sexual encounter with her own life partner, and in their own home, bad results immediately follow. That's negative meme number one. Wanting sex, having sex, liking sex, trying to have sex leads to bad results. And, as I said, we'll never see them have sex ever. But they do have a child together, so they're a family. And this is negative meme that I call celebrating celibate marriage, wherein marriages are often presented as being totally without sex. And often sex will be interrupted by the demands of family life. The children run in or something like that. And eroticism and marriage are two totally different things. And the best marriages include no sex. We're supposed to support Trep and Mika's relationship, and Mika's involvement in these various intrigues puts stress on that relationship, and we're supposed to hope they pull through. So Kovac winds up being captured by the government in all these complicated intrigues. Altered Carbon is really complicated. You're going to have to watch it. And he is sentenced to death in a gladiator pit of sorts. And they inject him with an hallucinogen first to make him easier to kill. And also, the soldiers who are sent into the pit to kill him in hand-to-hand combat are sleeved in bodies that look like people from Kovac's past, people who were important to him. And the first is his big love interest from season 1, Kristen Ortega. So the appearance of his lover from season 1 is sinister and dangerous. And then this phantom, semi-hallucinatory, only made to look like his ex-girlfriend, starts beating the tar out of him. That's negative meme number 2, dangerous sex. Sex is often presented as being dangerous, and danger is often presented as having a sexual component. This is all designed to make you very anxious about sex and sexuality. This is also the wanting disaster. Wanting sex, having sex, pursuing sex leads to bad results. But this is the wanting disaster in the past tense. It was back in season 1 when he was involved with Ortega, and that, of course, had all its own schemes and plots and twists and double backs. But now, because he had a sexual relationship with Ortega in the past, he now has to suffer this very unpleasant experience of having someone who looks exactly like Ortega beating him to death. But, spoiler alert, Kovac wins and snaps the Ortega sleeve's neck. We get to see him kill his former lover. Not really his former lover. Looks just like her, though. How's this going for you, by the way? Interesting? I think it's interesting. I enjoy doing this. I hope you enjoy watching. Please let me know about it in the comments if you've seen Altered Carbon, if you have anything to clarify or elucidate, please put it in the comments. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff is a huge bonus for this project. So moving on to episode 4, called Shadow of a Doubt, Kovac is finally reunited with his long-lost love, Kel-Christ Falconer, because guess what? It's Kel-Christ Falconer who's been running around killing Methuselahs with some weapon of unknown properties that is capable of permanently killing the stack and its backups. Falconer is played by Renee Elise Goldsberry, by the way. It's Falconer who comes and rescues him from the gladiator pit because she remembers her love for Kovac. But Falconer is having identity problems and she doesn't remember a lot of her past and she doesn't know why she killed Methuselahs, but she does instinctively remember her love for Kovac, and so they have a sexual encounter. He's been looking for her for decades. This is his goal in life, to travel from world to world trying to find the old revolutionary, thought to be dead, maybe not, in hiding. Oh, here she is. In her original sleeve, by the way, so at least we have that continuity. Her sexual encounter with her triggers painful flashbacks for Falconer, but she works her way through it, and we have a very PG-13, no pink parts sex montage that both seem to enjoy. He has pursued his lost love across many worlds, and now they embrace again. What do you think's going to happen next? We cut directly to a scene of a woman being tortured by a man who is pulling her teeth out with pliers. Then we're going to cut back to Kovac and Falconer asleep together, post-coital, in a very nice bed, into which a swarm of sinister tentacles are crawling! But no, it's just Falconer's nightmare. And then Falconer slips out of the bed and leaves Kovac behind. And goes off to do, we don't know what, but we're about to find out. Another figure in the incredibly complicated plotline of Altered Carbon is Governor Danica Harlan, who is the planetary governor of Harlan's world. She is a Machiavellian schemer and not a nice person. And we see a brief scene where she is having a sexual encounter, trying to have a sexual encounter with her lover in their private bedroom. Now, we don't see the governor in the nude. But we do learn that her lover has illegally borrowed the sleeve of some guy that she, the governor, encountered earlier. Her lover realizes that the governor found that sleeve attractive, so he has illegally borrowed it and put that guy's stack in a box somewhere so that he can use it to have sex with the governor. This is designed to be off-putting. This is also, it's villains who sex, one of the negative memes. Bad people have sex and like sex and seek sex out. Danica Harlan is a bad person, and the idea that she's bad is reinforced by the fact that she's having bad, illegal sex that doesn't respect other people's, well, property rights / bodily autonomy. Is the, Altered Carbon is complicated. When you can switch bodies out like this and keep an extra one in the closet, is it your body or is it like a suit you're wearing? Anyway, she's not being very nice, and she's certainly breaking the law in order to enjoy herself sexually. It's villains who sex, and also danger is sex. Whenever sex is presented in a deliberately weird or off-putting way, its danger is sex. That's what negative meme we're talking about there. We will never see Danica Harlan's sex life again. This doesn't come up. There's no change in the plot. There's no ramification from this. It doesn't turn into a scandal that imperils her administration or anything like that. It's just, hey, they're breaking the law for their kinky thrills because people who enjoy their sex lives are bad. And what we see after that small digression, just to show you nasty sex by the governor, is Falconer sneaks out of Kovac's bed, right out of his bed. He's still asleep, they just had sex. She sneaks out of his bed and goes and kills another meth or two, throwing Kovac's world into disarray again, piling up bodies, causing trouble. And her victims include Oyabun Tanaseda Hideki, who is an old, friend, I guess, of Kovac's, and basically the head of the underworld on Harlan's world. And then it's in the very next episode where she reappears at the Nevermore, the hotel run by the AI Poe, which is Kovac's base of operations. She's come back covered in blood. He finds her upstairs, nude in the shower, trying to rinse the blood off, and a pretty good cliche of a scene. And he embraces his nude lover in the shower while she's covered in someone else's blood. So dangerous sex right there. This show is extremely complicated. Again, I can't possibly summarize the plot, but through various schemes and clones and body switching tricks, in episode 6, Bury Me Dead, Kelchrist Falconer winds up in a lethal force duel with an earlier version of Kovacs, an earlier backup, in a clone of his original birth sleeve, the Asian-looking sleeve, and then there's the Caucasian sleeve he was in for most of Season 1, and then there's the African-American sleeve in Season 2, played by Anthony Mackie there. Interesting point. You say African-American when you're talking about people who've populated the stars, because they're not Americans, and it's not much related to Africa. They're centuries away and light years away from Africa itself, but he has the features that we would call African-American. Doesn't matter. Small point. Maybe we'll talk about it in the comments. Here's the point, though. Now we have these same two characters, the lovers, beating the tar out of each other. Dangerous sex, the wanting disaster. Their sexual relationship has led them into this situation where they're trying to kill each other. In episode 7, Experiment Perilous, Poe, the AI, has been developing a romantic relationship with Dig 301, who he calls Miss Dig. Both of them are rather nice-looking people. They're played by human actors, of course, but why do AIs look like nice-looking people, and why do they stare longingly into each other's eyes? Do AIs have romance? Do they have sex? It's not even mentioned. But if not, then what we have is the perfect situation. We have a romantic relationship that will never have any sex, because these two people don't have sexuality. Except they kind of look at each other as if they're expressing sexual longing, and it's possible for AIs to have physical bodies assembled by nano-assemblers. So, but the show doesn't explain any of that, because it's trying to keep all of the sex as far off stage as possible. Kovac winds up going into a dangerous AI environment to try to discover what exactly is wrong with Falconer, who's been having this split personality situation where she runs off and kills people. There he is lured by an entity that looks like Falconer, and this entity is trying to tempt him into a domestic life where he and Falconer have a beautiful little daughter, which kind of implies a sexual relationship. Although not always, because celebrating celibate marriage is one of the negative memes. Marriages are often presented as being without eroticism, especially the marriages we're supposed to support. But it's a lie anyway. This, as yet unidentified entity, is a major villain. And this villain insists on presenting with his girlfriend's face here in the VR environment. Danger is sex. The dangerous enemy looks like his lover. It's an elder, by the way. It's pissed off because Danica Harlan, the governor's... Danica Harlan is the governor of Harlan's world. Her father and some other Methuselahs founded the world, and in order to do it, they had to kill a bunch of Eldar eggs that they found, essentially, or dormant or chrysalis form elders. And now this last surviving elder, which has invaded Kelchrist Falconer's stack, is really upset and wants to kill a bunch of people. And so she and Kovac punch it out in VR, and the battle moves through several VR environments, including the bed they had sex in just a couple of episodes ago. Episode 8, the last episode of the season, Broken Angels. Governor Harlan got killed last episode, or at least her sleeve did, by, well, not Takashi Kovac, rather by the sleeve, the Anthony Mackie sleeve, which was temporarily inhabited. It's a long story. The point is, Governor Harlan's sleeve is dead, and so she gets re-sleeved, and she walks out of the re-sleeving, pod facility in the nude. We get to see her walking across some very attractive sleeve there. Certainly, we see nudity from the rear. We see her breasts. We did not see her nude in her sex scene a few episodes ago. That sex scene that was just inserted to show us that her sexuality is weird and gross, because sexuality is weird and gross. We see her nude now, and she doesn't say a word. She just walks right out of the re-sleeving pod and smacks one of her subordinates for letting her previous sleeve get killed. Dangerous sex. It's villains who sex. So now the elder that was in riding Kelchrist Falconer's stack is now loose in the sleeve of one Colonel Carrera, who is in command of Protectorate forces on Harlan's world. The individual worlds have their governments, but the Protectorate is sort of a quasi-fascist crypto federal government situation. Anyway, Colonel Carrera was a rival to Governor Harlan for power, but now that body has been taken over by the Elder, who wants to kill everybody using a network of Elder weapons satellites that orbit the planet. So by now, Falconer is giving Kovac lectures about how we are the problem, getting close to you was a mistake, our relationship leads to all this trouble. Our sexual relationship was a big mistake. That's, of course, the wanting disaster. In the end, though, Kovac sacrifices his body and his entire existence in an excruciating, burning death in order to save Harlan's world from the vengeance of the Elder, which is a plotline he got involved in because of his romantic and sexual relationship with Falconer. Number one, the wanting disaster. Really, the entire show is the wanting disaster. His involvement with Kelchrist Falconer is the wanting disaster. It leads to any number of bad results for him, including his final death. And a note about his girlfriend. His girlfriend is a psychopath. His girlfriend doesn't like stack technology, even though she invented it. She doesn't like the results, and she wants to destroy it. She wants to prevent anyone ever from using it. She founds an army of fanatics to fight for that cause. She's terrible. She wants to condemn any number of trillions of people to old age and death. And not only those people, but their loved ones and their survivors to the grief of losing them. Because Kelchrist Falconer is pretty sure she's right about that. She thinks that would be better. Mortality is better. And so Kelchrist Falconer will impose it on the galaxy at the point of a gun. If I walked into a restaurant and said, you see these dozen people sitting here? I condemn them to many years of suffering and frailty and dementia and senility and a slow death with tubes up their nose in a hospital bed. But you say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, Brian. You're aces. We should do this to everybody in the universe. No, you would think I was a terrible person. And you'd be right. But we're supposed to, support, I guess, Kovac's relationship with this absolute wacko, fanatic mass murderer. That's her ambition, is to cause the deaths of trillions when those deaths could be prevented. She's monstrous. But Kovac has devoted his existence to pursuing a sexual relationship with her, really. The wanting disaster. Dangerous sex. And another negative meme, your problem is sex. When protagonists want sex, pursue sex, are interested in sex, can get sex, it's presented as being their great character flaw that they need to overcome. But don't worry, because at the end of this season, Kovac, the other version of Kovac, the backup in the Asian sleeve, and Falconer are definitely not a couple. They're going their separate ways. Although they have profound feelings for one another, they're going their separate ways. They're not going to get together and, have a sexual relationship, because we can't do that. Trep and Mika are apparently a couple again, and Trep has gotten out of the dangerous bounty hunting business and is pursuing a new career, and Mika is happy. And we see a scene where they are being co-parents, but no eroticism. Again, celebrating celibate marriage, not one moment of eroticism. Their child comes in, hey, can I go off with the other kids and do this? Okay, all right, be back by such and such time. And when we could have the kid walk out and then have the adults look at each other and say, so it looks like we've got a little time. Wink, wink, let's have some sex. Nope, doesn't happen, no. Their relationship, which we're supposed to support, is apparently celibate. But wait, who is this? The big reunion scene at the end with the artificial intelligences. Poe, again, this show is very complicated. Poe is sort of dead for a while. He had to reboot and has lost a lot of his memory. But he's returned as a new version of himself and has encountered Miss Digg, who has taken over running the Nevermore and has renamed herself Annabelle Lee after the character in the love poem by the historical Edgar Allan Poe. In fact, Miss Digg has taken on a new look, a kind of a 19th century dress to match Poe's presentation, Miss Lee has really made herself over with a new name and a new look and a new job to please Poe, and they act like a romantic couple. They stare longingly into one another's eyes. She is clearly troubled by the fact that he doesn't remember her, but she wants to try to start their relationship over again. And guess what? AIs don't have sex. There's no suggestion of sexuality. She doesn't say, I want to have sex with you. We've never seen AIs have sex. AIs can have physical bodies, as I mentioned earlier, in this universe. So does that mean that they can't have sex? Do they want to have sex? But clearly these two have romantic longing for each other, but we've never seen AI romance mentioned before. Is this unusual? And why would AIs be romantically attracted to each other? For what purpose? Anyway, the point is, they are two rather nice looking people who can gaze longingly at one another and speak to one another tenderly, but never ever ever bump uglies. So hooray for that! We can keep sex off stage. In the relationship we're supposed to support, the relationship we're supposed to admire, there is no sex. By the way, Kovac probably isn't dead. It's heavily implied at the end of the last episode that Poe is somehow storing Kovac's identity data in his own programming. So what if we have here? We've got the wanting disaster from start to finish. We've got it's villains who sex. We've got serious people don't sex. We've got sex is what's wrong with you. We've got a bunch of the usual negative memes. It's the job of science fiction to make the future look terrible, because beautiful futures aren't very interesting, right? When you actually look at human history, advances in technology have always been a net gain, so that we today in the modern world live in a dream of security and plenty, unknown by our ancestors, unknown by many people on this planet, by the way. I'm lucky enough to live in the United States, and probably many of my audience, if you can afford an internet connection, live in relatively rich countries as well. While I'm recording this, it is late March of 2020, and the COVID-19 pandemic is a public health crisis, and it's probably going to get worse. But pandemics of the past were much worse than this, because during the Justinian plague, during the Black Plague, our ancestors did not have the tools, the understanding, the expertise to battle these things effectively. So even this crisis is much less of a crisis than something like the bubonic plague was, because of technological innovation. But science fiction has to show us troubled, dysfunctional, dystopian worlds, because that's where the adventure is. And hooray for Altered Carbon that can say we travel across the stars, immortality is within your reach, disease is unknown, and having the body be 6'2" with six-pack abs costs only $3 more, and yet everything stinks. Sex negativity. Here we go again. And to do that again, come back next week. There'll be another video on this channel on this subject with a different film. If you have any, or television series, by the way, if you have any suggestions for what films or series I should take a look at, please put them in the comments section. Always interested in your feedback. Until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate the time.